Well, surprise, surprise. Again, I've been predicting the rally. We had a triangle forming on the S&P, a back test with the bull flag breakout there on NASDAQ, and the VIX predicted that we would have a rally either today or tomorrow. The VIX gets it right again. So surprise, surprise, the rally I predicted is now happening. Momentum is flipping back to bullish as I said it would. The Dow was up 125 points. It's not flipping back to bullish with momentum yet. It will likely do so after the S&P and NASDAQ, which did today. S&P was up almost 1%, up 55 points, above 55 or 57.50. My target for the S&P is 57.50 to 6,000. I think the rally is now resuming. We'll see it complete in a few days. NASDAQ up 1.5%. Russell pretty much flat, just under 2 points. And the VIX, which predicted this rally, predicted momentum would flip back to bullish. It's now happened. VIX gets it right again. The VIX down 5.39%, still above 20, but VIX predicted a bounce or a bottom. It got it right again. VIX tagged the upper band, turned back down. Yesterday it was up 17.86. That meant there is an 85% chance bounce or bottom in the next two sessions. The VIX gets it right again. Drop back below the 50-period moving average again. I think S&P could rally further. Here's the S&P. I think it's been consolidating sideways, as I've been saying. I think we'll see a bigger rally to complete the diversions that I've been talking about. But then I think that will trigger a sell-off and a reversal. Stochastic back up at extremes here for the VIX, starting to roll over here. MACD is positive, so again, I expect the rally to continue. NASDAQ fills the gap, maybe overthrows it a little bit. I think S&P will top, Dow will top, and NASDAQ will peak with a lower high filling the gap. Now, I told you momentum had flipped back to bearish. We formed a triangle on the 60-minute chart. I told you I expected it would flip back to bullish. It is now doing that. I told you if I'm wrong, then we had a gap fill down here. And again, the 200 period on our 60-minute chart, which we've talked about, I've been predicting we get green bars showing up. We don't have it on the S&P, but we sure got it today on the NASDAQ. S&P got a blue bar. We still have a red bar on the NASDAQ, but they both got a bullish reversal of conditions. Rally, told you I thought would continue with the triangle on the S&P. Bull flag and the back test on NASDAQ is now resuming. Nailing it. I called the July top over here. I told you we never did go to a new high in August. And it was more that we were going to get a sell-off. We did. And then I told you right here with the jobs report that we were going to get bottom that week. And we ended up confirming that bottom with the bullish inside day validated with the CPI data back above the 10-period moving average. I predicted that bottom and a rally to new all-time highs. And I don't think it's done yet. We never moved to a new high in August. We are now doing so, moving above the July high, but I still think, again, the NASDAQ's going to fill the gap. S&P is going to go slam up under the upper boundary of the channel, the weekly time frame, and I think we'll complete negative divergence there. Again, flipping back to bullish, as I told you I thought it would. I have the guts to tell you exactly what I think. Very few people will do that. People predict things after they happen. When I told you back over after the July top, I told you NASDAQ I thought topped. S&P, I told you I don't think it's topped. I think we're going to go make another new high. We are making new highs now. I told you at the August peak here, again, we were going to pull back. We didn't make new highs yet. We're now doing that. I expect you're going to see a green bar tomorrow on the S&P 500. I think it likely set up a divergence here over the next few days. And then I think you're going to see divergences form on indicators complete and the start of reversal. But look at this. We're going from a reversal condition. See the red arrow, the red cloud, back to bullish. We had that on Friday, went back to bearish. I told you we're forming a triangle. I'll show you on the 60-minute chart. And again, it's a continuation pattern. We're now resuming the events, flipping back to bullish. The rally will end soon, but again, it is happening as I've been predicting. Been predicting the rally for NASDAQ to go fill up the gap there at 20,400, S&P to rally to new highs towards the upper boundary of the channel. Maybe we overthrow it. So rally's done. Prices are going to flip and go in the other direction. Talking about the downside. I've been talking about the upside. Even with this pullback, I told you, even though I predicted it with the diversions, I told you I was looking for that bottom and reversal, and that has now happened. So down, up, down, and now back to up. Again, to move, resume the advance. P500 daily chart. NASDAQ, again, I told you back over here, I was predicting that we would get a top. Then when we had it peak on July 10th, I told you on July 11th that, again, I believe that's a peak. I believe NASDAQ has topped, but I think we're, again, going to come back and fill this gap as I've been predicting. When we sold off over here, that, again, the NASDAQ would come back and fill the gaps and fill this gap right here, this initial first leg down right here. For the lower high, lower low, S&P would move to new high. It's all happening. Thing over here, again, we didn't fill the gap with this peak right here. And I told you that signals were predicting a pullback. Again, I was looking for a bottom with that CPI inflation data for that week. We got the bullish inside day, exactly the same thing as the S&P. And then we saw reversal of conditions back up, back above the 10 period. Here we pull back. And again, signals warned of that. Again, I told you, I still think we're going to fill the gap. Look at this. Again, we pulled back. We saw this reversal of conditions. We held above our 20, got back on Friday, back to a bullish reversal of conditions, back to bearish on Monday, and now on Tuesday, back to bullish. We don't have a blue bar reflecting the trend yet. That'll likely show up tomorrow, just like we don't have a green bar on the S&P 500 daily. But we did get the green bar here. S&P will likely join it. Again, we're likely forming a divergence on the MACD and the Awesome Oscillator. This will probably be finished in a few days. The likelihood by the 15th, which is next Tuesday, give or take, the divergence is going to happen. I think we will move above this high and fill the gap at 20,400. NASDAQ daily chart doing exactly as we predicted here, flipping back to bullish with momentum. The green bars I told you I was looking for, just nailing it. The rally is going to continue. Complete the divergences, and we'll see the top develop and the reversal happen. Right on, right on, right on. Getting the rally, oil prices coming back down. Big 4% move yesterday, and it's been rallying up since we had those tensions in the Middle East. And we're still going to see the market rattled by that, but the calm before the storm. I told you, I thought we would bite a little bit of time and get the rally anytime. It could be terminated. I think it will form the divergences first. Finish, I should say, the divergences first. People going, oh, they're saying they're going to respond to Iran's missile attack. They continue military campaign in Lebanon. We're going, oh, it's not going to happen now. It's the calm before the storm. They're going to strike when they're good and ready. Any day. That could be this week. That could be next week. It happens. It's likely going to rattle the market. They strike the oil sites, the infrastructure, and the refineries and all of it. See oil jump back up. Could even be an oil shock. Certainly possible. It's going to happen. And again, people that are telling us now, oh, no, it's not going to happen. They're being naive. So tensions are escalating, and again, something that could rattle the market. Again, geopolitical issues, they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's just a knee-jerk reaction. At other times, it lasts for a little while. The market ignores it. Sometimes has volatility going into it, but then when it happens, the market ignores it and then rallies. Now we're getting the rally. Likely we're going to have the market rattled by this. How long it lasts, who knows? Energy prices could really impact the stock market if, in fact, the oil sites are going to be the targets of Israel's response. So we'll be watching. I think this isn't going to happen now. It's going to happen, and it could rattle the market. Whether it's a catalyst that takes us sharply lower or just starts the move, it could be a number of things, but the market will begin to price in recession, so do keep that in mind. We saw crude futures jump up another 4% yesterday to the 200 period moving average. This is crude futures. Today it's down over 4%, giving back all of that and turning off the 200 period moving average. That's giving the market a relief rally. So we'll be watching this closely. It's had a big move off of the lows, and it could just be getting a pullback. We'll be watching to see what happens with crude oil. Should the oil infrastructure be part of the targets once Israel responds? We'll see what happens, but it is going to happen. Watching crude oil going forward, but right now, this is giving the market a relief rally for now. It's not going to last. Please please support the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. All the link, it'll take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want or make it a recurring donation. I don't have any sponsors, just a direct relationship with you. But if you could take a moment to do that, I would really, really appreciate it. Time and effort goes into doing this, so please show your support today. Thank you for your consideration for that. Seeing the bullish reversal of conditions today, talking about in this video, I've been predicting what happened. I told you it might be short-lived. We might see signals turn right back to bullish because of the S&P triangle. Back test of the bull flag on the NASDAQ. That's exactly what's happening. I told you I thought we'd see divergences form on indicators. Right here with momentum. I think that that's developing on the MACD and the RSI and other indicators. But again, I think that a divergence is going to develop here. We're going to go fill that gap on NASDAQ, likely peak out shortly thereafter. About the pullback with some of these signals. It's done. Now we're seeing the little arrow, bullish momentum. Some cases, that's a little hard to see here, but the momentum line here is still red. I think we've just been going sideways as we broke out of our bull flag and back tested it. And now I think the advance is resuming. You're going to see the momentum line turn on NASDAQ back to bullish in all likelihood here tomorrow or Thursday, but I think it's going to happen. And once the divergence completes here, I think NASDAQ will peak. I think that that will be when we're filling the gap and maybe overthrowing it. Thing here for the S&P 500. Again, I think a divergence is likely going to develop here with momentum and on other indicators. Momentum line here is still bearish, but we had these warning signals. The bar is turning back to green. Actually, it's going back and forth from green to red to green to red, really just showing that sideways triangle price action that we've gotten. Trending signals are still bullish. Short-term trend, the swing move, the cloud. Had the gray shaded area telling us, hey, it was getting ready to happen. Now, when it developed over here, it was just a short move right here. When it developed over here, it was bigger. I think you're going to pop up to new highs, form these divergences, and I think you're going to end up reversing and turning the other way, and I think you're going to form a top in the S&P 500. You get a bullish reversal of conditions today for both NASDAQ and S&P, as I'm talking about in this video, but I'll be watching to see if the momentum line turns back to bullish. Now, I told you yesterday we had a gap down, we had a gap and go on the 5-minute chart, came back and filled this gap back to key support. Told you this gap up here was likely going to be filled because, again, I don't think that the rally's done. And sure enough, we rallied back up. Here we had a gap and go. Here we had a gap and go. Now this gap's filled. This gap will probably be filled in the not too distant future. But again, rally is now resuming. I've been predicting. So a gap higher in strength, a pullback to getting above the 200 period, pulling back to the 200 period. 50 dropped below it, had gotten right back above it. We had dropped below it. Sell off yesterday, and then right back above it. We're now resumed the advance. FOMC minutes tomorrow. Got the inflation data Thursday and Friday. It's likely going to give us the rally looking for. The S&P was forming a triangle at key support. The line right on the nose there, we hit this lower boundary, horizontal support levels directly below, and we bounced. And then at the very end of the session, attempted to break out of the triangle. I told you we had a triangle continuation, be a reversal continuation. I told you what I thought it was, continuation that will take us higher so NASDAQ can fill the gap, S&P can move to new highs, all happening. I'm telling you, again, I don't think the S&P is done. It's going to rally further. I think it's almost done. I think it could finish in a few days. Everything that I keep telling you keeps happening. Signals continue to get it right. Here it is. Again, if we zoom out, you can see the triangle I talked about. Here's the key support just directly underneath. Told you if I was wrong about the triangle, I told you we could come down to the 200 and fill this gap down here, but I told you I still thought we'd move to new highs, but I thought you had a good shot of the triangle playing out because of why? Because the NASDAQ broke out of a bull flag previously, and it back tested. Back tested on Monday after breaking out on Friday. The MACD moving into positive territory. We have an attempted breakout of the triangle now. If we pull back into the triangle, maybe it redefines the upper boundary, but I do think it's going to play out. We'll be looking to see if we get a brand new fresh divergence here in the 60-minute time frame on the RSI. But this level continues to hold a support. The day after the Fed meeting, we started to sell off the day of the Fed. It was a fake out. We cleared this level. We pulled back. We rallied. The divergence gave us this pullback to test this level again. And now we formed the triangle. We're bouncing off of it. Support continues to hold. We're going to form a divergence. And then you're going to come back and you're going to start breaking these levels. Look at the triangle. You can see it on the daily chart where I think we're headed. Here is the daily chart. Here's the triangle in blue. Here's our rising wedge in black. I think you're headed to the upper boundary of the rising wedge in the next few days. Maybe you overthrow it. Sometimes you overthrow the upper boundary of a wedge pattern. And again, my target level is 5750. We've already reached that. My minimum objective target up to the 6,000 area. In that range, I expect that we will see a peak. Now, again, we may fall short of 6,000 and just reach this level here. We see a peak at, the 58 or 5,900 area, fall short of 6,000. But I'll be watching this level or for an overthrow, and then I'll be looking for the divergence to complete. I think a divergence is forming right here on the RSI, and I think it will form and complete in the next few days. We could get a top either this week or on into next week. So have a guideline about 17 to 19 days after the Fed pivot, which was right here with this candlestick, this fake out candlestick that Berkeley 2001, 2007, we rallied for 17 to 19 days. In those examples, the rally was terminated. I think we have a very similar situation to 2007 where we're rallying back up. We're going to peak and begin to see those negative divergences play out in the weekly time frame. Yes, I've been calling for a rally. Yes, I predicted that, again, the sell-off with the jobs report, that we would get some kind of bottom at that insight day and predicted new highs. I told you we were going to get a sell-off over here and over here. And again, with the sell-off, I told you I'm going to go back up and make new highs, and we were going to see NASDAQ fill the gap. Exactly what's happening. So again, but I think that the rally will be terminated soon and we'll complete a divergence here. Or the other possibility is that we just reach an extreme and we don't form a divergence. That is certainly possible as well. Sometimes you see that happen. Down over here, we reached an extreme, but we didn't form a bullish divergence. Do the same, reaching an extreme at the upper end here above 70 on the RSI. So everything playing out, I think that the rally will continue a few more days. I think something will happen to rattle the markets, economic data, or whether Israel's response to Iran, whatever it may be, certainty surrounding the election, whatever. Look for this divergence to complete and then to turn. But it's not just the RSI. There are other indicators predicting would form divergences. At least try to. And I think that the MACD is likely going to form a divergence here. Again, I've been talking about, doesn't this look familiar with over here, the rising wedge in 2022, the divergence, that lower high, then the higher high, the peak, the lower high, the higher high, that sell-off ahead of it, the sell-off ahead of it, looks very, very similar. The RSI even looks very, very similar. The extreme, the lower high, then the higher high, the extreme, the lower high, the higher high, forming that larger divergence. We move to a higher high above this peak. We're still not above this peak. And again, you're likely going to see a divergence develop in the most recent price action and this larger divergence. Larger divergence in the most recent price action, and that led to the reversal. When we started to sell off, we dropped 15% real fast, about like 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. This is what I think is happening, and as we rally up further, I think we're rallying up into that upper boundary of the rising wedge. I think you're moving towards the upper boundary of the channel, which I've talked about in the weekly time frame. We're now positive for the week. I told you, again, I'm looking for a rally up into this upper boundary as NASDAQ goes back and fills the gap. And then, again, maybe we even overthrow this. Maybe I include the shadows here. I kind of exclude the shadows a little bit. Maybe we include it and we go a little bit higher. Maybe we even overthrow this level. Again, my target level is 5,750 to 6,000. And I think these divergences complete and we see a top start a reversal. And again, it's really getting hard to try to find an indicator without a divergence on the S&P 500. You have these triple divergences everywhere. I think this is going to play out. I think we're going to see likely a top here this week or next week in all likelihood. I think that will be very close to the guideline we've seen in the past with the other initial rate cuts by the Fed. But again, the triple divergence here forming, I think that this is going to give us a top and allow it to play out. The rally that I've been talking about is designed to be a short squeeze and to suck in the bulls. They can do a rug pull on them. It's designed to do as much damage to the bulls and bears alike. I've been predicting the rally for the short squeeze. I'm also predicting we're going to get a rug pull once it's done, which I think will be at higher levels, maybe closer to the upper end of my target. We'll be watching. Look at this divergence on the MACD. This thing's going to play out soon. Price is moving to new highs. Recent highs are high from a couple of weeks ago, and we're likely going to exceed that very soon. And again, the MACD is not as forming this triple divergence. NASDAQ or the RSI is doing the same thing. I think you're going to see a peak to mid-October here. Guideline would take us towards October 15th, next Tuesday. Again, not hearing what I'm saying with that, I'd be disappointed. It's a guideline. It's not a prediction for that day, hour, whatever. Guideline. We could top before, we could top after. A guideline to what has happened in the past. History may not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Looking for a top, especially if we just got the rate cuts. Fed's doing that. We got recession coming. The market will begin to price in the recession. And before it's in the recession, it will form a top. So we're looking at these divergences carefully. Guideline suggesting we could see a top 3.5 to 4 weeks after the Fed cut. Coming Friday, it would be 3.5 weeks. In the next week, we'd be closer to 4 weeks. In 2001, it is a guideline. We could top before then. We could top shortly after. We may top around the same time. 2007, it was by October 11th. That's just coming Friday. 2001, 19 days. That's October 15th. It's a guideline. So I hope you hear what I'm saying. I say that because some people only hear what they want to hear. Market's going to peak on the 12th or the 11th there. Market's going to peak on the, and I'm saying it's a guideline. I know that we're going to see reversal because I'm looking at these divergences and they're not complete in my opinion. I think we're going to go higher. I know the time is short. That's why I've been predicting higher prices. That's why I've been predicting a rally will likely finish once NASDAQ fills the gap at 20,400, which will likely very soon, either this week or next week, and will probably overthrow the 20,400 area just a bit. I think NASDAQ moves to a new high. Again, I think we're headed to this upper boundary. NASDAQ, when it headed to the upper boundary, it overthrew it. Maybe we do the same here. We'll see what happens. Again, 5,750 to 6,000. That is my target level. Then I think form a peak, reverse, and start ushering in a bear market, pricing that in. Time is short. I think over the next 6 sessions, or I guess 5 now, Thursday, Friday, next Monday and Tuesday. The time frame from those previous tops, at the rate cuts quickly, 2001, we had already peaked. We dropped 19.5%. We rallied with the initial rate cut. We rallied for 19 sessions, almost a month. And then we turned and we resumed the crash. Ended up dropping about 51%. Just gave us a counter trend. I think we have more of a situation like in 2007. 2007, we had the Fed cut. It was the very same day we had in 2024, September 18th. We rallied for 3.5 weeks till October 11th. That's this Friday. It'd be funny if it peaked the same day. That would be hysterical. Good. Again, if we rally with the inflation data and then start to reverse. 17 sessions, a top 3.5 weeks later. So 3.5, 4 weeks. Again, this is a guideline. Here, rather than having already dropped 20%, we peaked and we dropped 20.5%, or dropping 19.5% as we did in 2001. Here we had a big drop right after and a rally, the final exit, and then again we crashed 58%. This is a guideline, but this is what I think is going to happen. We're going to see a similar amount of time right here. Maybe it goes a little longer. Maybe it goes shorter. My signals are turning back to bullish right now. My guess is it's going to be very similar to this, or maybe a little bit longer. I hope you're hearing that. Go past for those divergences to complete. It is a guideline. Add data to try to make educated decisions. I showed you the S&P. The triangle is attempting to break out. Again, I think these divergences are going to form on the histogram and the RSI and other indicators. The MACD, the stochastic. I think we're going to form these divergences, okay? About a triangle forming at horizontal support. I told you NASDAQ had broken out in its back testing. That's why I told you I thought we would see the bullish reversal of conditions turn right back to bullish, zoom the advance. So here we have the triangle that formed and the breakout at Q support. NASDAQ, we had the bull flag. We broke out of that on Friday. We back tested it on Monday. I talked about this in yesterday's video, and I told you I thought we'd resume the advance to come back up here and fill the gap here at 20,000. 398, this 20,400 area. That's what I think is going to happen. I think we'll do that in the next few days. Top out in the next 5 sessions. I think it's very possible. Fill this gap in the next 5 sessions. I think it's likely. We can fill the gap and turn immediately. We can fill the gap and go beyond, overthrow it. I don't think we're moving above this peak over here. I think that's the top. Could I be wrong? Sure. If we go a little bit higher, you're still going to have the trend line on the monthly chart and the weekly chart just directly overhead. Not going to go too much higher, but it's likely that the NASDAQ is going to make a lower high and the S&P will make a higher high. They'll diverge. Also, I told you I thought NVIDIA would move above the August high. It's done that today. The NVIDIA rally we had yesterday, I told you I thought NVIDIA would eventually allow S&P to resume the advance. S&P has already moved above the August high over here. We now have NVIDIA doing it, and NVIDIA is likely going to make a double top with either a lower high or a higher high. My guess is it's going to be a lower high. I do think S&P will make a lower high as well. NVIDIA peaked back in June. I think S&P peaked back in July. Wrong. Again, I tell you other scenarios because I could be wrong. I just have the guts to tell you what I think. MACD going positive as well here. And again, why I thought we had a back test on our hands as I talked about yesterday. We bounced off support and resistance line here. And again, this is where I think we're headed. We'll likely form either a divergence with this peak over here or a brand new fresh divergence, one or the other. But I think that, again, see a peak in the next few days, and then I think you're going to get your rug pull. Goes on for the rest of the week. See a top either later this week, inflation data, or on into next week, early next week. Could be that Israel waits after Yom Kippur, which is Friday, on into Saturday, wait to respond to Iran's missile attack, and then we see some kind of volatility. Watching energy prices. We'll be watching oil. We'll be watching up here, and I'll be watching the resistance levels on the daily and the weekly chart that I showed you on the S&P 500. But I do think that we're getting very, very close. But I've been predicting new highs. Again, at our low that's set up here, I told you we're going to, again, eventually come back up and fill this gap and then reverse. And again, we believe that a double top is forming on the NASDAQ that will likely give us a lower high. I could be wrong. It could give us a higher high. Bitcoin recently got the double top pattern. It got a lower high. I think NVIDIA does the same thing. NVIDIA, very similar to Bitcoin. See my latest Bitcoin video. I'll link it at the end of this one. You can see what's going on with that. I think Bitcoin's going to rally back up but set up another lower high, very similar to the NASDAQ. Again, I believe that we're going to see divergences develop on the daily chart, on the 60-minute chart. Here, I think we'll see a divergence with momentum, with NASDAQ coming up and filling this gap. Big rally today, 307 points, up 1.55%. Again, been predicting this. Again, looking for the double top, likely a divergence as I've been warning, and then I think we're going to turn back down. Now, again, if I'm wrong about this being an ABC move, we go a little bit higher, and again, just above this peak and turn. See other scenario. Guesses NASDAQ has already peaked. Already started the bear market, and we're getting a lower high. I think S&P is continue to get higher highs, top out in the next few days. People don't think that's possible. We know the divergences are looming over the weekly and the monthly charts. Starting, it's about to happen. Recession indicators are predicting the market's going to begin to price in a recession. So the Fed is starting to lower rates because we know that they know a recession is coming, even though they won't admit it. OMC minutes, probably rally on that, see what happens with the inflation data. The inflation data sometimes one day is up, which could be the CPI on Thursday, and the next day is down. So again, we've had times where it's up for both. I think that was back right here. It was actually when I told you I was looking for a bottom over here for the inflation data the following week after we had that jobs report. And again, we had an update for both the CPI and on the PPI here on NASDAQ and S&P. I'm telling you, sometimes one day is up, one day is down. Regardless, I'm looking for a top. I'm looking for this to fill the gap here. And I think when that happens, I think S&P will complete the divergence. NASDAQ will have a divergence in the more recent price action, but likely a lower high. Live it, love it, learn it. You can see this very quickly. This week, we could see this very quickly, or it could drag out into next week a little bit. Look at the RSI. Look at the MACD on the NASDAQ. I think you're going to complete a divergence here. I think this is going to go up, and then I think you're going to complete a divergence. I think that this is going to go up here, and you're going to see this divergence develop here Could see a topping tail surrounding this level. We could see some kind of candlestick reversal pattern. Could overthrow it, could get a close above it, and then we could see some kind of reversal take place after that. I don't think we exceed this level, and I could be wrong. I'm just telling you what I think, but I think that we're going to fill this gap. I think you got a good chance we're going to do it this week, and once that's done, I think you're going to start a reversal. Looking for divergences to complete. We just saw momentum. Here we have RSI. Here we have the MACD. Looking for these divergences to complete in the daily time frame, and then I think we'll begin to see the divergences play out in the weekly time frame. Now, NASDAQ had a divergence over here. I'm looking for confirmation of a lower high. Its weekly chart. I already had the 9-count sell signal in the weekly time frame back over here. S&P and the Dow are getting the 9-count this week. We'll get a perfected sell signal. You got a good shot that we get the peak either this week or next week with S&P 500 and the lower high completing probably this week. I've been warning T minus 5 sessions we'll be watching to come in very similar to the guideline that we had in 2001 and 2007. We'll see. So it will come in very close. On the weekly chart, I think NASDAQ will move above that last minor high that we had. And again, 20,400 or even overthrow it, maybe go up 1,500 or 600 or something, but not to exceed this level, just under 20,700. It was the high 20,600 area there. This is where I think we are headed. And again, looking for a lower high, then I think we'll come back and break this trend line, start moving below these levels and start moving down towards this level. I think you're going to see a pretty dramatic drop. Looking for confirmation of a lower high. We had a lot of divergences back at this peak, and I told you as we were rallying up into these trend lines that that's where I thought the top was. Here on the weekly chart, we peaked on the 10th, on the 12th, on that Friday. It started to sell off. We had the peak. We started to reverse on the 11th. I told you I thought the top was in. I told you I expected a rally back up. We got it. Topping tail, I told you I was looking for a reversal, red bar the following week, and we got that. Played out accordingly. I think I'm looking for a lower high here. I think that is going to play out. Wrong. We go back up and we hit this trend line. Maybe overthrow it again like we did here if we get a higher high. So that's not going to be the case. NASDAQ and S&P often diverge at tops and bottoms. You recall back over here when NASDAQ peaked in November of 2021, that the S&P went on to make a new high in January of 2022, but NASDAQ made a lower high. They diverged from one another. NASDAQ got a lower high, S&P got a higher high. And then daily time frame, they also diverged at the July peak. So we see it in the weekly time frame, we see it in the daily time over and over again. Quickly, we have NVIDIA getting the rally. I've been predicting this, that it would move above the August high. I told you I thought that would help NASDAQ. We have this rally going on. This is NVIDIA is going to get a lower high and not move above the June peak. I could be wrong. We get a double top that goes slightly higher, but I am looking for a double top. Bitcoin, when it formed the double top, it got the lower high after its March peak. I think that, again, we could see something very similar to Bitcoin here and get a lower high and form the double top. Doesn't matter. Looking for that gap fill. And that's why I'm telling you, again, if gap, when we try to go higher on NASDAQ, it still may go up and hit those levels. There's major resistance in the monthly time frame and the weekly time frame directly overhead on NASDAQ. Wanted to continue to show you this because we had that rally, broke the downtrend, moving above the August high for this ABC move. NVIDIA up 4% today. That helped the NASDAQ. Rally I've been predicting here for NVIDIA, now allowing NASDAQ to move closer to that 20,400 level target. And that prediction to play out, looking for a way to come to a conclusion in the not too distant future.